Hey guys, welcome to Art Tips, I guess. I don't know what I'm going to call this. I'll figure out a clever name by the time I post this. Preferably one that uses a potato pun. But if I don't, then I guess it's just going to be called Helpful Tips. So, yeah. Let's get right into it. This is about coloring, because I feel like I've gotten a lot better at my coloring in the past month or so, and I wanted to share some of my techniques, because I think that, you know, they're alright. So we're just going to get right into it. I've prepared a sample with 4 stages that I think are important to consider when you are coloring something. So the step 1 is the base color, and on a separate layer from your line work, you need to put down some base colors, and they don't necessarily need to be the colors you intend to use for the final artwork, but the most important thing here is just getting some colors in the spots where you intend for color to exist. And at this point, you shouldn't be thinking about shading or giving any depth to the picture. This is known as flatting or flat coloring. I do not recommend using the magic wand tool at this part of the drawing. I know that it makes it easier to color within the lines, but you don't really need to worry about that yet. If color goes outside the lines, just get rid of it with the eraser. You can do it. I believe in you. The magic wand will make pixelated outlines between your color and line work, unless it has flat color beforehand, and you don't want that because it looks ugly. So just take the few extra seconds to erase what comes outside the lines, for now. I would also like to mention here that I tend to avoid using pure black or pure white in my art, unless I'm doing a grayscale background or something. Here in this drawing, for instance, the black hair and white teeth are both tinted slightly blue. It, to me anyway, makes the art feel a little more lively, and keep in mind this is just a personal preference of mine. Many cartoons and comics can make this look really good, like Scott Pilgrim and Freakazoid. My favorites are 2 examples that come to mind of artistic mediums that effectively utilize pure black tones as stylistic choice. So, like, with Freakazoid, his hair and his mask and his logo, they're all pure black, and it creates a nice aesthetic. I like it a lot. And Scott Pilgrim, in the non-color version anyway, it is, the shading is done entirely through black. So, like, the shading and the line art just completely blend together, and I think that looks really neat. Even still, I think that this can be done well. I choose not to do it because I don't think I'm skilled enough to do it well. So when I do use pure black or pure white, on the rare occasions that I do, I make sure to use strong highlights and shadows. So for pure white, I shade it with a light blue, and to highlight pure black, I use a saturated indigo. So then we got step 2, which is touch-ups and textures. So, as you can see with this one, I changed the color of the jacket from green to purple. I did this mostly so that I could show that you can use the magic wand tool at this point after you've done the flatting, which will let you change the color whenever you want without having to worry about the weird pixels. That means that you can experiment with the colors that work best for the work instead of just sticking with what you initially put down, which sometimes doesn't look the greatest after you do a little more. I then used a different brush to add texture to the jacket. I wanted it to look vaguely magical and shiny, so I added a lot of paintbrush strokes with a paintbrush brush. Oh my god, I forgot the word brush. I'm so tired, it's 8:30, I don't know why. And I also added in another layer for the spots of the character's hair and her freckles. And I did this because I wanted to be able to turn the opacity of the layer down and turn it from a normal layer to an overlay. And I really love overlay layers, can I just say that? I figured out how to do it recently, and I'm just obsessed with them. Sometimes they can make a drawing look really terrible, but if you position them right, then they can look really great. So step 3, basic shading and highlights. I have an easy rule of thumb for shading. If there's an area of a drawing that would naturally cast a shadow onto another part, like hair onto a face, chin onto a neck, arms covering up a jacket, go on and on and on, I will draw the shadow in by hand, in a separate layer from the coloring so that I can adjust opacity and layer type at will. I used to do shading and coloring in the same layer. I do not recommend that. It makes it really hard if you accidentally get a shadow in a place you don't want to. I would have to go back in with the coloring color and just color over the shadow, which, don't do that. Do not just take black and turn the opacity down to shade. I used to do this all the time. It looks terrible. Don't do it. Just don't. Take the skin color that you used, or any other color that's you used as the base, and go and make it either more saturated or just add shade in the color wheel. So either move it up or over or both on the color wheel. I use a color triangle, so yeah, get your life together. Don't just lower the opacity of black. Don't do that. It looks ugly. I know it's going to start a little controversy in the art community, but I don't care. Anyway, after you finish drawing in your hand-drawn shadows, I like to then consider the actual light source. And I used to not think about the light source at all, and I still don't really think about it that much, but what I've started doing is using the gradient tool, which is amazing, to do the rest of the shading that is based on light. So what I'll do is I will magic wand the area that I want to be shaded. Like, for example, the hair. I magic wanded the hair. Is that how you say it? Magic wanded? Whatever. I use the magic wand tool on the hair, then I use the gradient tool so that only the hair would be affected and the rest of the picture wouldn't be impacted. And that way I was able to add a soft highlight that gradually fades away, as well as a soft shadow coming in from behind, so that, you know, it just looks like there's some light. I also use this on the jacket, and yeah, is it obvious I'm using a script? I'm using a script, but I am going on tangents. So, part 4, filters and final touches. I've become a bit of a... I've started using filters as a bit of a crutch. Yeah. I just put down a bunch of bright colors and then I turn the opacity to 50% and I make the layer overlay and boom, it changes basically everything you've done, but a lot of the time for me anyway, that it ends up making it look a lot better and aesthetic. I also recommend at this point going into your background layer, and before you get started on the background, so whenever you were planning on doing the background, do this first. Make the background the same color as your line art, so that you can see any mistakes in your coloring, so like any parts where the color goes outside the lines. That way you can erase those parts before you get super deep into your coloring and realize, oh wait, I can see a little bit of the character color outside the lines, oh no. Or like before you combine layers or anything. So this is a good thing to do before you combine any layers. Speaking of line art, wait. Yes, I thought I skipped the line art part of my script, oh my god. Speaking of line art, I use the Magic Wand gradient tool again to give the black line art a bluish tint. This isn't necessary, but I think it adds a little depth to any drawing. And then you're done, unless you want a complex background, in which case you're out of luck. No, just kidding. I suggest picking 1 or 2 colors and using muted tones of those 2 colors. So like anything in the bottom left-hand corner of your color triangle or color wheel, so that it doesn't contrast too much. Well, it will contrast. It'll just fade into the background of your art. See what I did there? So that your character is the focus and it's not being drowned out by your background. Unless you want the background to be the focus, and that's okay too. In that case, just do it the other way around. You know, make the character 1 or 2 colors, and make the background really pretty and vibrant. Just do what you want. Another thing I want to say is I know a lot of people think that saturated colors are evil, and I mean they can look really bad if you do them wrong. But if you use saturated colors responsibly, they can make it look nice. Like, don't use muted tones all the time. It can really detract from something if everything is pastels and everything is grayscale. And sometimes it's good to have a really vibrant artwork a lot of the time. And people are turned off by that because of the thing against saturated colors, and I think that's really sad. So we need to stop this discrimination against saturated colors, against saturation, you know. we should stop that. It's mean. I will say saturated red is terrible, but, like super saturated red, but, just, yeah. I'm rambling at this point. I'm out of script. So I hope this was helpful to some people. Yeah. Signing out. Please subscribe. I want to get to 100, at least. That's my only goal. Check out my animatics, bye!